Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. I'm Gargi Rawat and our top story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Egypt for a two-day state visit. This is after his US state visit. During the next 2 days, he will hold talks with the Egyptian leadership, including President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, as the two nations seek to enhance their strategic partnership. The Prime Minister is visiting Egypt at the invitation of the Egyptian President. Now, this is the first bilateral visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Egypt in 26 years. In his first engagement, the Prime Minister held a meeting with the newly set up India unit in the Egyptian cabinet headed by Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli. There you can see that meeting and discussions focused on deepening cooperation across a range of areas, including trade and investment, renewable energy, green hydrogen, IT, digital payment platforms, pharma and people-to-people ties. The Prime Minister also met with members of the Indian diaspora, that event too taking place in Cairo.
He told me that have I ever been to India? So I told him that I've never been to India before. He also told me, how did you learn to sing in Hindi or to speak in Hindi? So I told him only for movies and songs. And then he told all of us that like we look Indian, like there's no difference. So I was so honored. I was so honored to hear these words coming from the Prime Minister.
We are all honored today and we are like very happy. बहुत खुश रहे क्योंकि Prime Minister मिल गए. It's honor to Egypt. We as Egyptian, we cherish and love the Indian culture.
Right, so the Prime Minister on a state visit to Egypt. Now, he just completed a packed state visit to the United States, which was from the 21st of June to the 23rd. It was on the invitation of US President Joe Biden. It saw a state dinner, bilateral meetings with Joe Biden, a US Congress address, and a speech to the Indian-American diaspora. Prime Minister Modi and US President Joe Biden, in fact, marked what they have described as a new stage in the India-US relationship. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
India's indigenous Tejas fighter, designed and developed primarily within the country after the US sanctioned New Delhi after the nuclear tests of 1998. Critical development work on the jet being done with US assistance had then come grinding to a halt, forcing India to develop key technologies at home. 25 years later, the heart of the next generation Tejas Mark II, its engine, will not only be American, but will now be manufactured in India after a landmark jet engine tech transfer deal from America to India. In fact, America's never transferred such technology to any other country. And it's clear that this is a defense relationship that's come around 360 degrees.
जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक कंपनी का भारत में फाइटर प्लेन के इंजन बनाने का फैसला भारत के डिफेंस सेक्टर के लिए ये मील का पत्थर साबित होगा। ये समझौता करके अमेरिका सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी ही शेयर नहीं करेगा, बल्कि म्यूचुअल ट्रस्ट को भी शेयर करेगा।
This is the MQ-9B drone, the other big-ticket defense item announced during the Prime Minister's visit. India is getting 31 of them in a deal thought to be worth about $3 billion. A decade ago, US export restrictions had meant that India would not be authorized to receive these drones, the most advanced of their class in the world. The strategic relationship today is the product of a series of foundational agreements, painfully negotiated over a decade. They allow Indian and US forces to operate closely together and for India to acquire some of the most sophisticated US weaponry. The General Security of Military Information Agreement, the Logistics Support Agreement, the Communications and Information Security Memorandum of Agreement, and the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Intelligence.
In simple terms, what these agreements have resulted in are US and Indian platforms, by which I mean ships, maritime reconnaissance aircraft, and drones being able to share electronic data with each other securely through encrypted systems. for our forces to be able to work with one another and for extremely sensitive real-time intelligence information often acquired from US satellites to be made available to Indian forces. Now, neither India nor the US will spell out exactly how they cooperate, but we can confirm that the relationship is profound and involves tracking China's movements on our land frontier and out at sea.
In 2023, India and the United States now work closer militarily than the US does with any nation except its NATO partners. These Malabar naval exercises include India, the US, Japan and Australia, and are part of a collective military strategy in tackling an expansionist Chinese military. Today, the Chinese Navy, for example, is challenging the US Navy for global supremacy, and Beijing has built its first overseas base in India's backyard in Djibouti in the Horn of Africa, details of which NDTV reported through these satellite images. By coming together strategically, India hopes to shore up its defenses, while the US addresses, with its pronounced tilt now to the Indo-Pacific region, its security concerns, the common threat, China. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
30 political parties attended the meeting convened by Union Home Minister Amit Shah to discuss the situation in Manipur. Almost all opposition leaders present demanded the removal of BJP leader N. Biren Singh as Chief Minister for his failures. They also asked for an all-party delegation to be sent to Imphal and questioned the Prime Minister's silence.
The Union Home Ministry briefing members of political parties from across the country with a detailed presentation on the Manipur situation. The Union Home Minister listened to the suggestions of all parties, including the Congress, and said, after discussing with officials, he would respond to their suggestions of an all-party delegation to Manipur. Nearly 120 people have died and over 3,000 have been injured in the ethnic violence that continues since the first week of May.
प्रधानमंत्री जी की चुप्पी को लेकर हमने कहा कि प्रधानमंत्री जी को किसी तरीके का जो कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्डिंग मेजर होता है वो प्रधानमंत्री जी जब तक नहीं बोलेंगे कहीं ना कहीं मणिपुर के मन में लगेगा, मणिपुरी लोगों के मन में होगा कि उनका ध्यान मणिपुर को लेकर नहीं। साथ ही साथ ऑल पार्टी डेलीगेशन वहाँ पे विजिट करे, देखे ऑन ग्राउंड क्या हालत है, तो वो भी हमने उनको सजेशन दिया है। उन्होंने ये आश्वासन दिया है कि जो जो चीज़ें वो कर पाएंगे और जो जो सुझाव हैं जो हमने दिए हैं उनको वो किसी तरीके से इम्प्लीमेंट करने की कोशिश करेंगे।
बिना कोई भेदभाव के सारे मिलिटेंट ग्रुप के पास जो हथियार है वो उनसे छीनना चाहिए। जब तक ये मुख्यमंत्री बीरेन सिंह मुख्यमंत्री रहेंगे तब तक मणिपुर में कोई परिवर्तन की संभावना नहीं है।
एक तो बड़े खुले मन से बात हुई। There was absolutely an open kind of situation where we all expressed our mind. Entire opposition went to the extent of saying that the person who is heading the administration there is absolutely no trust in him. So even if you wish to broker peace, wish to work on peace, you cannot have peace unless that person is in charge.
देखिए, आज की जो बैठक हुई है उस बैठक में एक माहौल पॉजिटिविटी की, सकारात्मकता की थी। सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज ने कोऑपरेशन की बात कही। सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज ने कहा कि हम भी चाहते हैं कि यथाशीघ्र वहां शांति बहाली हो। प्रतिनिधिमंडल भी सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के जो मौजूद थे उन्होंने भी इस बात की सराहना की कि आज से पहले ये अनप्रेसिडेंटेड रहा है कि कोई गृह मंत्री 3 रात और 3 दिन मणिपुर में बिता करके या किसी राज्य जहां दंगे हो रहे हो वहां बिता करके आए।
The meeting lasted for over 3 hours. 2 main issues were raised by all opposition parties. First was that they wanted all-party delegation, which includes opposition leaders also, to be taken to Manipur so that they can assess the ground situations themselves. And second, the Chief Minister of Manipur, Mr. Biren Singh, should resign.
Meanwhile, in the Imphal Valley, women's groups seeking the intervention of the Prime Minister to resolve the crisis in Manipur. In tribal areas of Manipur like Churachandpur, on Saturday, thousands in black clothes, black masks, forming a human chain on the roadside, while leaders of the Joint Students' Body walked with black dummy coffins in memory of those who've died in this violence. Meanwhile, the army is engaged in ensuring the security of citizens and responding to miscreants disturbing peace. After the all-party meet, the hope is that there will be a breakthrough and a peaceful solution will emerge for Manipur. With Neeta Sharma, an NDTV Bureau Report.
Raids of the Income Tax Department are underway at locations of the Shree Cement Group in Rajasthan. The raids took place in the group's offices in Jaipur, Bewar, Ajmer and Chittorgarh. In the search conducted so far, the income tax officials claim to have found documents related to tax evasion of up to 23,000 crore. Now, if sources are to be believed, the group has evaded tax of 1,200 to 1,400 crore almost every year, and according to allegations, fake agreements were made with sarpanches, gram panchayats and local bodies to evade tax. And if it's indeed 23,000 crore, it will be one of the largest tax evasions ever in the country. After reports of over 100 deaths in a week in two districts of Uttar Pradesh, Balia and Deoria, allegedly caused by the heat wave, the government has, however, denied that deaths were related to the heat. But families of the deceased have a very different story. Saurabh Shukla reports.
This is the district hospital in Deoria, Uttar Pradesh. Most of the patients here are complaining about fever and diarrhea. Both are symptoms of heat stroke. According to media reports, more than 60 deaths were caused by the heat in Deoria alone between June 15th and 21st. But the Deoria administration maintains these deaths have nothing to do with the heat. The Balia administration has released a list of more than 50 patients who were brought dead to the hospital. The administration says their deaths have nothing to do with the heat, but the families of the deceased claim otherwise. Last Sunday, 25-year-old Ranjan Yadav was out in the afternoon when he felt dizzy under the blazing sun and collapsed. When his body was taken to the district hospital, the administration did not conduct a post-mortem or any kind of investigation. The family was driven away.
गाड़ी रोके हैं और वहीं रोक करके 10 मिनट बैठे हैं। बैठने के बाद थोड़ा बहुत छटपटाने लगे हैं तो लोग पास में कोई था तो दौड़ करके गया। भाई पूछे लोग तो बस उन लोगों से बस पानी मांगे हैं और पानी जस्ट दिए हैं, लोग पानी भी पिए हैं और गांव के भी लोग 2-4-10 लोग गए हैं, प्रधान भी गए हैं। तो पानी पीने के बाद 2 मिनट के बाद वो वहीं गिरे हैं और एक्सपायर कर गए हैं। हम लोग दौड़ भागते हुए यहाँ इमरजेंसी आए तो राजन जी को हम लोग रिसीव किए। यहाँ मौके पर एक्सपायर मिले। डॉक्टर साहब बोले कि ये एक्सपायर कर गए हैं, तो वहीं बता रहे थे डॉक्टर साहब कि ये सब गर्मी के कारण हुआ है।
63-year-old Nirmala Tiwari fell down on Monday and was rushed to the hospital where she died shortly after. Again, the Deoria district hospital did not conduct a post-mortem or even give a death certificate to the family.
हम लोग भी इमरजेंसी में गए तो मौसी की शरीर बहुत गर्म थी। डॉक्टर ने इंजेक्शन एक लिखा, वहाँ पे बहुत भीड़ थी, अफरा तफरी का माहौल था, हॉस्पिटल बहुत भीड़ था। एक इंजेक्शन लगा, मौसी को बहुत ज़्यादा बुखार था, उस समय हीट थी शरीर। इंजेक्शन लगने के बाद हालत में बहुत सुधार नहीं थी। डॉक्टर साहब थोड़ी देर बाद ईसीजी करने चले, तो ईसीजी जब करने चले तो मेरी मौसी की मौत हो चुकी थी। डॉक्टर साहब बताया आपकी मौसी है नहीं। हम लोगों ने कारण पूछा तो उन्होंने कारण कुछ नहीं बताया, मेरी मौसी की मौत हो गई थी।
But even though many families claim the blazing temperatures were connected to the deaths, the Deoria administration has denied this.
अभी तक हम लोग के संज्ञान में कोई भी कंफर्मेटरी हीट स्ट्रोक से डेथ नहीं हुआ है। अभी तक 1 तारीख से अब तक 4 मरीज जो संदेहास्पद थे उन्हें हीट स्ट्रोक मानकर भर्ती किया गया, बेहतर उपचार दिया गया, लेकिन उसको बचाने में हम लोग सफल नहीं हो पाए। अन्य आने वाले सभी मरीजों को जो भी इमरजेंसी में आ रहे हैं उनके लिए सारी चिकित्सीय सुविधा उच्च स्तर का उपलब्ध कराया जा रहा है।
An inquiry was set up to probe the deaths in Balia and Deoria, but the report is still pending. The government has said further investigations are needed.
बहुत दुखद घटना हुई थी। हम पूरी तरह से सतर्क हैं और चिकित्सा व्यवस्था चाक चौबंद है। सभी डॉक्टरों की छुट्टियां निरस्त कर दी है। कई जगह कुछ मिला जुला रिपोर्ट था तो हमने अलग से दोबारा भेजा है मेडिकल कॉलेज के जीएमसी में। अभी रिपोर्ट आया नहीं है क्योंकि लंबा समय लग रहा है। कुछ रिपोर्ट अलग डॉक्टरों बताए थे, कुछ अलग बताए थे। अब रिपोर्ट शीघ्र ही आ जाएगा, हम सार्वजनिक करेंगे। हाँ, विस्तृत जांच।
Even today, the district hospitals of Balia and Deoria are full of patients. But with temperatures going down, the public can hope for some relief. With Saurabh Shukla, Osama Shab, NDTV.
We're time for us to slip into a short break. More news on the other side. Welcome back. Now the latest on the coup in Russia by the mercenary Wagner group, and now news of a de-escalation as the troops were marching towards Moscow. Now news coming in that Wagner mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin has put out a voice note to his troops to asking them to stop, saying he's agreed to stop the movement of his troops who are advancing on the Russian capital. According to reports, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko held talks with the Wagner group head, during which Prigozhin has agreed to stop his troops and de-escalate the situation to avoid any bloodshed. That is the news coming in. This as authorities of the regions bordering Moscow have been taking increasingly serious steps to slow down the Wagner group from approaching the Russian capital, such as closing roads or limiting traffic. But now news of a ceasefire or a de-escalation in the tensions. On the eve of the 40th anniversary of the 1983 World Cup win, a special event in Ahmedabad 40 years ago, couples Devils did the unthinkable and won the first World Cup for India in 1983. Take a look at this report. 1983 World Cup champs reunited, connecting the past to the present. The Adani Group is collaborating with these heroes of the 1983 to launch the Jeetenge Hum campaign to support the cricket team for the upcoming ICC ODI Cricket World Cup 2023. On stage, the stars of 83 went back in time, sharing their memories.
हम अकेले नहीं वर्ल्ड कप जीते, सबकी उतनी ही ताकत थी या कह सकते हैं जोश था जितना मेरा था. तो सिर्फ मेरा ही नहीं या मेरी टीम का नहीं, तमाम हिंदुस्तान के लोग जो हमें चाहते थे उस दिन जीतना, तो उनको भी धन्यवाद कहना चाहता हूं.
Mohinder Amarnath relived the celebrations after the historic win.
पहले तो ये कहा था कि जब मेरा पता लगा कि मेरा नाम भारतीय टीम में आ गया, हमें किसी ने कोई मौका ही नहीं दिया जीतेंगे. हमने कहा 1 महीने का फ्री पेड हॉलीडे मिल गया. उसके बाद सेमीफाइनल में मुझे बॉलिंग का अवसर मिला और इयन बोथम उस जमाने के बड़े ज़बरदस्त हरफन मौला खिलाड़ी थे, तो उनकी विकेट लेने का मुझे अवसर मिला और बॉल बड़ी लो रह गई, लो रही और स्टंप पर गिरी. तो कपिल ने आगे पूछा कि लो रह गई और टर्न भी हो गई, दोनों में से एक ही बात हो सकता है. तो मैंने कपिल से कहा तो ये गनीमत समझ कि 1 इंच ऊपर स्टंप के लगी है, कहीं और नीचे जाती तो अंडरग्राउंड हो जाती और बोथम बच जाता.
And Sandeep Patil narrated an incident when his mother shared advice during the semi-final.
22 June, which was the semi-final, happened to be my late mother's birthday also. And she had on the eve of the match told me कि life में अभी तक मैंने कुछ मांगा नहीं है, तो please कुछ कर देना. तो मैंने खुद को मैंने कहा था कि आज बॉब विलिस आया, बॉब विलिस का बाप आए, मैं तोड़ने वाला हूँ. And luckily, great Bob Willis didn't bowl well, और maybe मेरा नसीब था, मेरे मदर की दुआ थी. And thanks to the partnership between Yash and Jimmy, which I mentioned, I think that helped. And जब सामने कप्तान आता है बल्लेबाज के लिए, मेरे साथ कपिल था, तो सारी चीजें आसान हो जाती है.
Led by Captain Kapil Dev, all the players gifted a signed bat to Mr. Gautam Adani as a gesture of thanks. Bureau Report, NDTV. With that, time for us to slip into a short break. News updates continue on NDTV.